The purpose of this video is to show how to deploy TLS SSL connections between the connector and the AAI server. This is a two-way authentication mechanism with steps on both the AAI server and all the connector hosts. Configuring the AAI server happens only once, but every connector needs a certificate. The procedure has several steps and will provide extensive details for each. We're going to apply a consistent color code throughout this presentation. Steps performed on the AAI server will be shown in dark red. For the AAI connector host, it will be in green. We're assuming that the two components are installed on different systems in your environments. The procedure is as follows. We recommend following these instructions carefully. Any wrong turn, typo, or misstep can cause malfunctions and lack of connectivity. Note that TLS should have already been deployed on the AAI server. You cannot deploy TLS to the connector unless this was done first, since we require inputs from the AAI server key store. First, we generate a key on the AAI server. For this, we have the generate AAI key.sh scripts in the connectors directory under the main AAI file system. This key signs all connector client certificates, and every connector will need one. The key is generated and added to the AAI server key store. Then we have to update the AAI configuration file called standalone.xml under the JBoss file system. This file contains the AAI settings for protocols, will enable SSL, and a few other things. Then, on the AAI server, we generate the connector certificate, which is required by the connector to connect to AAI over TLS. We use generate connector cert.sh under the connectors directory we mentioned in the first step. This generates a jar file, which we FTP to the connector host in a directory called secure, which we have to create manually. The jar file contains the credentials to authenticate with AAI. Then we move permanently to the connector hosts. We reinstall the connector module, which is now TLS enabled. For this, we have the file configure.atomicconnector.sh. Finally, we have to update the application.yaml configuration file. This contains settings for the connector. We use it to enable SSL for the connector. Finally, as a last step, we have to recreate the connector in the web interface. If we run into issues, we can check the connector log and restart the connector as needed until it works. Let's start with the first step. We have to generate the key which signs connector client certificates. We use the generate AAI key.sh script. This generates a certificate which gets added to the AAI key store which we created when we deployed TLS. The required inputs are the name of the certificate. It should be the fully qualified DNS AAI hostname. Since we're working on a mostly localized environments, we'll use the regular hostname. We have to enter the AAI key store's password, since adding the certificate to this key store requires us to authenticate. The file creates the key called AAI connector key.p12, and the certificate is added to the AAI key store. Let's run the scripts. The certificate name has to be the fully qualified DNS hostname of the AAI server. We're prompted for the password of the AAI key store. We should have written this password down when we deployed TLS to the AAI server. The reason for this is that the certificate is going to be added to the key store. The certificate was added to the AAI key store, and we also have a key under the JBoss standalone configuration directory. Next, we configure the AAI server using the standalone XML file, so it's able to communicate with the connectors over TLS. We edit the file. First, we search for a security realm. 3 changes are needed under the security realm equal client cert realm section. First, we have to uncomment the entire section. Then we have to replace the names of the trust store and key store with connectortrust.p12 and AAI connector key.p12 respectively, which are required names. You can also change the passwords to something better than simply password, although we're not going to bother. Next, we have to activate the HTTPS listener. For this, we search for the section and simply uncomment. Finally, we do the same for the socket binding section and enable client authorization HTTPS. Behind the scenes, we restart AAI. We won't show this. On the AAI server, we use the generate connector cert.sh script to generate their certificate signed by the key we created earlier. We have to specify the name of the new TLS enabled connector we're going to create. Its name has to be different from the name of the initial connector we created when we first installed the framework. We need to create a key store for the connector to store their certificates. We give it a name and a password. This file contains the encrypted credentials necessary to connect to AAI over TLS. We'll copy this file to a directory called secure on the connector host. Secure has to be created manually. Let's invoke the script. In order to store our certificate on this host, we need a key store, which requires a password. We also have to specify the password to the AAI server key store. The credentials jar file stores these passwords, which means that the two components, AAI server and connector, will be able to authenticate with each other and communicate over TLS. We have to copy this file to a directory called secure under the Atomic Connector file system on the connector host. You just have to create the secure directory manually and then FTP the file. We make the Atomic Connector user we created when we install the connector the owner of the directory. We copy the file. We're done with the AI server and we're now working on the connector host. We use the configure atomic connector.sh script to install the certificate on the host. Required inputs are the URI of the AI server, which makes sense since this is what we're trying to communicate with. We use the 4443 ports, which was configured by default in standalone.xml. We also confirm the password of the connector key store, where the certificate is going to be stored. We can leave the other fields empty. Let's invoke the script. The system reminds you to copy the jar file to the secure directory. This is the name of the new connector. It should be different from the initial name. The connector certificate is now properly installed and the configuration was saved to application.yaml. We have to update the application.yaml file to enable SSL. This is the connector configuration file. Let's update the file. We restart the connector process. We may have to do this again after the new connector has been created in the web UI for all the changes to take effect. Finally, we recreate a connector in the web UI with the appropriate connector name. If you run into issues, you can always check the connector log. It should be obvious that there is no communication between AAI and the scheduler, which means the current connector is no longer working. It's evidenced by the fact that events were updated more than 24 hours ago. Let's update the connector with a new name. Still, events do not update. Let's check the log. The log tells you that you're connected to the AAI server and the communication over TLS is working. It's just not finding your new connector. The easiest way to fix this is to simply restart the connector again. Your data is now being successfully extracted from the scheduler.